Okay, so how do you want to start?
Ew.
You sound different, Conley. Why do you sound so different?
I wonder if it's because we're in the same time zone.
We're in the same room at the same time?
Just crazy talk.
This is crazy talking. Here we are actually recording something for Season 4, Episode 1, Freefall.
Woo!
We're back after more than a year, because it's not July, it's September now.
I almost forgot what the show was about.
I know, really, right? Like, it's not like the title has anything to do with it.
No. I just remember gorilla sex from last season, so.
Hey, we all try to forget that and fail miserably, but hopefully this season will be better. We'll talk about that, but we're going to make this really quick because we're in Orlando. We're at Walt Disney World together, hanging out for the week, and we meant to record something on Sunday night while the show was airing, but we were indisposed at one of the many wonderful places around here, getting extremely drunk, and it was a good time had by all. So,
we were at a tiki bar.
We were.
I regret nothing.
Yeah, nothing about that. So, I guess what we'll do is talk about kind of what we liked and disliked about this episode, and then we'll close out by talking about where we think things are going to go for this show in particular, because there's been a lot of commentary and a lot of questions about kind of where the show is headed direction-wise. So,
I guess my first question is, who do you think is winning this breakup? Bill or Jen?
I think they're both failing, which is very refreshing to see. It's not like one of them has all the power over the other, which is this constant struggle that they've been through for the last 12 years, which I noticed in a couple of reviews that came out about this episode was getting kind of old and tired. I know the dynamic is about ready to flip itself on its head, but I'm interested to see that they're both kind of, Ginny especially, I mean, she's lying a lot about her situation. So who do you think is winning the breakup? Do you think anyone is winning the breakup?
I think neither of them are winning, but at least Ginny is kind of doing the same thing she always does, but a little bit bigger, as opposed to Bill, who is stealing his suit pieces back from people at Goodwill. So
that was a nice moment. I did appreciate the just the general hilariousness of the fact that he ran his car into a statue of Joseph, and at the end of the episode, he walks past the damaged statue of Joseph. It seemed like a funnier episode overall. It seemed like they really took some time and regrouped and really concentrated a lot on what people didn't like so much about the writing last season. I can only hope that they keep the momentum going.
And I kind of wonder if this was the arc they were driving towards all along, like if they wanted to always do something with Hef, because obviously that was a big part of Masters and Johnson kind of as they moved through history. And so I wonder if they kind of had to bridge the gap between some murky place where they didn't know what they wanted to do, and Hef, which was maybe like a shining star in the distance.
Right. Yeah, I can see that being the case, because before, I can't remember if it was Season 2 or Season 3, Michelle Ashford came out and said something like, this season, this is really the time when they were kind of out in the wilderness and no one really knew what they were doing because they weren't famous, but they were doing a lot of work, but we feel really weird about just jumping forward in time without addressing this, because they were doing interesting research. And it kind of, I think that that choice, that decision to show all of that really means that they had to make a lot of stuff up, and the show has taken a lot of criticism for that kind of thing. I don't know.
I guess I don't really mind the artistic license, but I do have another question for you.
Okay.
Do you think that Ginny married Dan, or is she just lying about that?
She is straight up lying about that. She's just making shit up left and right.
Yeah. I kind of think that they're not even together. I know one review that I read said, he's probably cheating on her already. He's traveling for business. And I was like, bitch, they broke up, months ago.
It's been like, what, 3 or 4 weeks since the end of Season 3, I think. I really wonder how they're going to do a 180 on they really seemed to double down on the Ginny loves Dan and Dan is perfect for Ginny. They really worked hard on just driving that home. But at the start of the season, it's like none of that has held, none of that has caught. So I'm interested to see how they're going to lay the pieces to do the reveal on what happened to Dan, because it had better be good for there to be such a sudden, complete reversal on that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really need a sudden, complete reversal, because I never really believed she was in love with him anyway.
No.
She loved the idea of him and, oh, you love me so much, I will be your wife, and this will be great. Like, it just, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think she just liked the fact that someone was, quote unquote, like, committed to her.
Yeah, he gave her the romantic stuff, and he was supportive of her professional career. So, yeah, it remains to be seen what exactly went wrong. But, yeah, I definitely think they're donezo. Speaking of donezo, do you think Bill and Libby are actually donezo?
You know what? I think there's no love lost there, but I would not be surprised if they pulled a Don and Betty and just have, like, one last go around just to see what would happen.
Yeah, in the preview for episode 2, she does say something about how she wanted him to do something for her pleasure only, and there was some mention in one of the preview reviews that said that they have like a friends with benefits relationship. Not sure how much I actually want to see that.
See, I don't know if that would... Unless it's some sort of, like, weird power play between the two of them. Like, remember the terrible sex we used to have? And now we're not going to have that, and we're not going to be married. Like, I don't know.
Maybe that's her end goal.
Maybe. That's the only way I could see that actually functioning. But I don't know. I still think that's... Yeah. It's too much to do a whole relationship. Just, like, one and done. Come on.
Yeah, I could see it being a Don and Betty, like, oh, let's bang one last time just for old time's sake. Wouldn't that be funny? What do you think of Libby's new friends?
Well, I love Fig. I really hope that Fig is going to try and make a move on Libby just because...
I think her name is Anita. And it is interesting that you and I both kind of were watching the episode and we're like, pretty sure Anita is gay. Pretty sure that's pinging for us.
I mean, she was putting out some vibes.
Yeah.
I think it was safe to say.
It was there. Whether or not this show deals with that respectfully, because Libby's future is not to go off and become a feminist consciousness raising. The reality of the situation was that she went off and married an admiral or someone really high up in the ranks in the U.S. Navy and sort of was always that gracious Talbot's wearing homemaker type.
Well, and I think it would be interesting if they sort of took her all the way, for the pendulum swing, just took her all the way to that, like, feminist collective place, and then had her be like, you know what? I'm going back to country clubbing.
Yeah, that would be kind of funny.
I mean, it would infuriate me, but it would also, I think, be very true to her character. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like she needs something to do other than, like, sit around and be friends with benefits with Bill.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of get the feeling that Libby should have exited the show a while ago, but you sort of, I can see where the writers would be like, we can't really just ignore her outright.
I just need her to talk to other people. Yeah. Like, again, it's the Betty Draper problem. Like, let her interact with people in the world, and maybe you can get her a good story. Like,
she's a fascinating, icy blonde woman, but at the same time, her function is to stay home, apparently.
I'm glad we're not seeing the kids this season, though.
So far. Tessa was in one of the preview pictures for a future episode, so she'll be back.
Oh, God. She'll probably be hitting on Bill.
Hopefully Johnny Masters will not be around. I was never the biggest fan of that.
No.
But speaking of which, was there anything in particular that you disliked about this episode or that you kind of saw coming and were like, I don't know about that?
Well, I did find the parent trapping funny between Bill and Jenny, Hef's whole scheme. I didn't straight up dislike this because I felt it was very true to both like what happened and kind of to Ginny's situation, that she goes in trying to pitch herself as, you know, hey, I can be this freelance columnist. I don't need masters. You know, I'm my own person. I have all these credentials, and Hef straight up tells her, no, you have to be a unit. So I didn't love it, but at the same time, it wasn't like a show quitting moment for me.
Yeah, there's this moment where there's all kind of sitting in that underground area with the swimmers going past them, and Ginny's made this big pitch, and she's talked to Hef's sidekick assistant. We found out that her name is Maud, by the way. I didn't get that from the episode.
Never gonna get that.
And so she was in the bar talking to her, and she had this, or even before that, she had this big moment where she was like, you know, women always have to audition. It's always this big struggle. Why does it have to be this way? She has this big feminist moment, and then it turns out Hef wants her to be part of this brand, and I think it would have been more natural or driven home better if he'd focused on them as a brand rather than, you guys really need to fix your relationship and use your techniques on yourselves so that you feel good about each other again, and you need to be back together in order for this to work. I think if he had been more like, I'm a businessman, I can see the money here, I'm willing to hand you money, but you have to stick to the brand for this to work, then I think I would have found that more believable.
Kind of, I'll give you money if you put on a good show.
Exactly. Yeah, I think if it had been a little more dog and pony type thing, because that's kind of what their marriage turned out to be anyway, was sort of a big front, in a way. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that. But at the same time, like, I don't see Hef as a sincere character in this particular role. So when he was like, oh, you need to fix the problems between you, you need to do whatever, it just sort of was like, all right, you're speaking words, and soon you will not be, and
and then you'll go away and probably just go have sex with somebody. So just go do that.
Right, like you're pretty much biding the time between when the next playmate shows up.
Basically. It was really nice to see a good, solid interpretation. I won't say impersonation of Hef, but a good interpretation of him. That particular actor does a good job of him.
Well, it was kind of interesting, too, because, again, as soon as I saw the whole grotto, like the Playboy estate, I flashed back to the Sex and the City episode where they go visit and Hef's an old man.
Yeah.
I just have permanent old man Hef, like... I don't know. I can never picture him as being young. It's one of those people who you just imagine like sprung fully formed into the world. So
it makes you think of all the playmate stories that have come down over the years, like especially the girls who were with him just a few years ago. Like they make fun of him in front of. Anyway, we won't get into that because that's not pertinent to this. But let's see. Any last thoughts? Anything you definitely wanted to hit?
I love Niecy Nash.
I'm so glad she's on this show. Oh. She brings a very good freshness. She and Betty are both formidable aspects to Bill's conscience, I think.
And I think it's good, again, to have kind of a new character, but also someone who maybe is more morally driven and kind of... I'm not looking for the word respectable because it's not about respect, but it's about just sort of that internal motivation and that integrity as opposed to, like, Ginny doing whatever she feels like just so she can be successful, or Bill just kind of being like, I'm God, I make the rules, I break the rules.
She has a sense of integrity about her.
She does, and I like
that. She does
it
because she knows it's right, and I did like that. She'll be interesting because apparently she's going to become a patient at some point.
Really?
Yeah. So I guess she has some sort of past.
All right.
So that should be interesting.
Cool. I hope we see more Betty this season.
Yeah, definitely. She and Helen, I don't know, something pregnancy. That's all I know. That's all I've got.
All right.
So, and then let's talk a little bit about what we think is going to happen at the end of this season. I don't mean in terms of plot necessarily, but final question. Do you think this is the last season of Masters of Sex?
Oh, if I was a betting woman, I would say probably. I don't know if they would have enough plot kind of to go forward with the next season. Like, how some shows, when they're getting ready to end, even before anything's announced, even before, anyone sort of is leaving and looking for new work or visibly in new jobs, I think it's kind of at that point where you can tell that they're coming to the end and they maybe want to wrap it up as gracefully as they can.
Yeah, I think given what's happened, I mean, they haven't announced anything, but Showtime now has set a precedent by what they did with Penny Dreadful. For anyone who doesn't know, Penny Dreadful was, its third season started earlier this spring. They went through, they marketed it exactly the same way that they normally did. The story went through. Last episode aired, and all of a sudden, like, the protagonist heroine dies, they bury her, and then the title card comes up at the end, and it just says, the end. And the show got canceled, and they didn't tell anyone. So I'm, like, really concerned that this is going to happen to the show. I don't want it to happen, but I feel like I'm mentally preparing myself for this to be the end.
Well, I think, too, there's so many... people who are sort of being spoken about or being introduced to where, if the show ended 2 episodes from now, you would almost have all the information.
Yeah,
you kind of extrapolate, like, okay, Bill... I'm just thinking about the rumors of Dodie.
She is going to be in this season.
So, stuff like that where it's, clearly they're thinking about bringing someone in for the long haul, but obviously, you know, this isn't Cheers. They're not going to have a million seasons.
Yeah, but I mean, the way the writers were talking about at the Television Writers Association conference in the summer was very much, well, we're thinking ahead. We're thinking about how plot is going to go. Whether or not they have successfully carried off a ruse or not will remain to be seen. I don't know.
It'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting. So I don't want to end on a downer note or anything. It's not like I think it's going to end, but I don't know what's going to happen. It definitely has a what if feel to it.
Favorite comedy moment from the episode. Let's close on that.
Jeez. Okay. I wasn't prepared for this question. I'm going to have to think about it now. I think for me it really would be when Niecy Nash is just like, she just has this Trudy Campbell moment where she's just like, nope, you know, you're going to show up to this and I'm going to drive you all the time and I'm going to make it happen because you're going to remind me of how far I've come. And he's just like, fine woman who won't, you know, stop molding me into what she wants me to be.
Nice.
It was a good moment. What about you?
I think I would say Harry Crane foot fetish, but I'm afraid we're actually going to have to see more of that.
Yeah. I feel like that's not over yet.
No.
Yeah.
What's my runner-up? Maybe my runner-up is Fig bullying Libby into taking off her bra, because I found that hilarious.
Yeah, that was a moment. That was a choice. That was a choice.
Some things you don't learn in cotillion.
No, that's true. Okay. Anything else?
That's it for me.
All right. That's it from us here in Orlando. Thanks for listening. We'll be back sometime soon, hopefully. Yeah. But we're having a great time here, and we hope you guys enjoyed the premiere of Masters of Sex Season 4.
Enjoy your week.
Until next time. Bye.
Bye.